This video brought to you in part by Tommy and the Order of Cosmic Champions. This exciting and heartwarming coming-of-age Gen X novel is available now. Check the link for more info. Ever since MyArcade and Atari first revealed the Gamestation Plus just last month at CES, the internet has been abuzz with discussion about this thing, both pro and con. Many people speculated this was going to be a new console from Atari, but it turned out to just kind of be a fancy plug-and-play. Based on what we do know, it's left me to wonder whether or not the Gamestation Plus was ever really focus grouped, or whether or not we are the focus group and they just kind of announced it at CES well in advance to get feedback and kind of see what the market is interested in and what comment we had based on what we saw. Well, in this video, I'm going to try to accomplish three things. First, I'm going to run down what we do know so far about the Gamestation Plus, what you can expect, how much it's going to cost, and when you can expect to see it hitting store shelf. And number two, I'm going to address why this thing exists and why it makes sense for MyArcade to release this plug and play in 2023. And number three, stick around to the very end. I'm going to put on my product manager hat and I'm going to pretend I'm a MyArcade product manager and walk you through the 5 changes I would make to the Gamestation Plus before it's released later this year. Let's start then with what we do know so far. The Atari Gamestation Plus, manufactured by MyArcade, is going to be a brand new Atari plug-and-play. If you're not familiar with plug-and-plays, this is a box that has games baked right into it, and literally you plug it into your TV and you can start playing it. The Gamestation Plus is going to include 2 new custom controllers designed just for this new unit. These controllers are not Bluetooth, but rather use 2.4 gigahertz to communicate to the base station. You can play with the controllers powered by batteries, or you can plug them directly into some USB-C ports on the front of the device. There's been some speculation about the tops of the controllers, whether or not they spin to allow kind of a paddle or spinner type functionality. And at the time of this video, MyArcade actually confirmed at CES that it has no spinner functionality. I know the top of that joystick looks like it could be a spinner, but apparently it's not going to be. The controllers also have this little multicolor LED lighting around the base of the stick. Now, many people thought that looked great. A smattering of commenters in my videos have really said they think it looks dumb and they hope they can turn it off. At any rate, it is a differentiating feature and it's something that will jump out to a customer probably on a store shelf as, maybe a way to kind of capture their attention. Let's talk about the games that are going to be on this Gamestation Plus. Now, what we know is that it contains only Atari 2600 titles, Atari 7800 titles, and Atari arcade games. The estimate I've seen thrown around is about 200 games in total, but there's not a list yet. We don't know what is or is not going to be included. We saw a few items on the front of the box, which oddly were focusing on trackball and spinner games, where this has no trackball or spinner. It's an odd choice to highlight that when the controls are kind of lacking. And interestingly, something I didn't notice in an earlier video, but many viewers pointed out, from what we see in the publicity, there's at least one Activision title. Activision Boxing was shown on this screenshot. Now, that could have been a mock-up. It could have been somebody just grabbing screenshots and throwing it in a menu, or it could be that they actually have some Activision games on here. And if you're a 2600 fan, that's really good news. We also know that for video output, the Gamestation is going to be only 720p. Now, why not 1080p? I mean, any single board computer these days can output 1080p. Maybe that's something they will do. In fact, I think I saw that they said they might address that and maybe they'll consider doing it. I don't know why you would start at 720 with a new product like this in a modern day over HDMI, but at the moment, that's what we know. Once you have it plugged in and you're playing it, you're going to be able to select different kind of aspect ratios, turn bezels on and off, and you should have access to difficulty settings. Now, we don't know if that only means like for console games, like the 7800 and 2600, we're talking like AB difficulty and stuff like that, or whether it might also include arcade games. Will they give me access to the dip switches in the games where I can control difficulty and where I get an extra man and, things like that? Don't know. The big question that feels like everybody wants to ask first and foremost is, when can I get it and what is it going to cost? Well, $99.99 is the price that has been quoted, so it's right at $100. Once you throw tax in there, you're talking $100 for shipping or whatever it is. And when is it available? Now, I haven't seen a street date, but in multiple locations, I have heard people say that it should start reaching influencers June of 2023. So if you're going to start getting it out there in front of, people who are going to review it and things like that in June, I would expect it's going to start reaching consumers by late June, early July. So now let's talk about why it actually makes sense for MyArcade and Atari to release this product at this time here in 2023. Now, many people, the overall sentiment has been, this is more of the same. I've already purchased all these games. I already have all these games. You didn't give me games I didn't have already or didn't have easy access to playing. And yeah, that's true, kind of. You might have seen the video I did about the Pocket Player that they announced also at CES. And many of the same things for that ring true here. And that is to say that the Gamestation Plus is likely not targeted at lifelong Atari enthusiasts who have been collecting toys and gadgets and original hardware and cartridges all of their lives, because yes, this is a retread of that stuff. I think this is really targeted at people who don't already have the games. I'll talk about that in just a second. But I will say that although there's some debate about, hey, we've already got one of these, we've already done this, we've had all these flashbacks, and while that is true, what they're doing here specifically has not been done before, by which I mean giving me 3 different platforms in a single device that I can plug in my TV. I'm talking 2600, 7800, and arcade. So let's talk about the difference between these two kind of consumers. Let's call them the avid Atari fans and the casual Atari fan. We'll call them that way. The avid Atari fan might walk into a store, see this on the shelf, look at the specs on the back and start reading through it and start ticking off in their mind, oh, I've already got that, I've already got that, they've done that before, I've already got that. And those are marking out reasons why you would possibly spend money on this. But let's talk about a casual Atari fan, just the average consumer that walks into Target. We're talking about someone who played Atari maybe in the arcades or on their 2600 back in the 70s or 80s, but they never pursued it again. And then they walk into a store and on the shelf, they see this thing that's beautifully designed. It has, this rainbow artwork, reminiscent of the 5200, 7800, the 2600 Junior, that rainbow across. It looks great. 2 joysticks. And then they look on the back and they start reading through the games. And they're like, well, I played all these games and I remember this in the arcade. I used to spend money on this. And God, I love that game. And then they see that they can plug this in their TV and play all those games, 200 plus games allegedly. They look at the price, $99. Like they're not gonna go to the internet and start browsing, how can I accomplish these things by purchasing other stuff released in the past and dig up on eBay? No, they're gonna think about it at all. They're gonna drop their $100, they're gonna take that thing home and plug it in, and they're gonna be thrilled with it. So just because it's not something brand new to all of us does not mean that repackaging these things in a modern platform and distributing it new to stores doesn't mean it's not going to have an audience. Now, that is not to say that this product is perfect and it could not do with some improvements to make it even more marketable and successful. What I'm going to do now is step into the role of a MyArcade product manager and envision that I am responsible for the sales and success of this unit. What can I do to make it better? And by the way, I am qualified to speak as a product manager. That's the role that I held at my old job before I got laid off a couple of months ago. And by the way, if you didn't know, at the moment, GenXGrownUp is my full-time job and I'm working to make it grow and be sustainable. If you enjoy the stuff that we do here and over on the podcast, please consider supporting us. You could do that over at Patreon at patreon.com/GenXGrownUp for as little as $1 a month. Or if that's too much of a commitment, you could click that little thanks button below the video or just share this out with folks to help us out and help us grow. Okay, so what would I do to make the Gamestation Plus better? And by the way, these are not just improvements that I as a fanboy would like to see, but are rather things that as a product manager, I know would increase sales and increase the reputation and profile of MyArcade and the Gamestation Plus in the market. These are in no particular order, but here are the things that I would do. The first thing I would do is switch those cool new controllers from 2.4 gigahertz to Bluetooth and make them universally usable with any other device, with your computer or with your tablet or whatever. Why? Because there are people who like those controllers but don't need this plug and play. I think there are people who would buy this unit at $100 with Bluetooth controllers and maybe never even plug in the console. They would just use the controllers. That increases sales. The second would be the simple change to bump this up from 720p to 1080p. Look, if I'm going to play my old games on HDMI on my big screen TV, I want it to be crystal clear. There's no reason to down convert to 720. And a lot of people are going to want to stream this. Give me 720 as an output so I can have a quality stream. The third thing I would do, which is pretty obvious and everybody would like to see this is also a little bit for the fanboy in me, and that is to add some more of those other consoles in there. Look, this is the 50th anniversary of Atari. Don't hold back. Give me the 5200, give me the Jaguar, give me the Lynx. Put that stuff on there too. If this box can play 2600 stuff, it can surely play Lynx and 5200 stuff. Jag is a little tougher because it's a more modern, but still, if it had all of that, you could probably bump it up to 125, 130 if it had all that stuff. And again, you would sell more. The fourth thing I would change is adding an SD slot for expandability. Look, many handheld and tabletop devices have done this thus far. Would you like to compete with the Retron? Would you like to compete with, some of those other knockoff devices that have SD cards? All you have to do is give users a way, even if it requires downloading custom firmware. And that's a great way to firewall this off. If you're concerned that the average consumer is going to mess up his console by giving an SD slot, disable that functionality. Make hobbyists go to the website, download a custom firmware that uses the SD card, and then they can expand their console. That way you don't damage the market for the uninitiated, and you enhance this device for the market that would really love to have an expandable box like this. The last thing I would do is a little bit off the wall, but hear me out. I would make an add-on that includes a spinner and a trackball and sell that in addition to this. If the concern is that we can't fit all that hardware, look, I know trackballs and spinners aren't cheap to reproduce. Make an add-on, make a secondary controller, and make it either USB or Bluetooth. Again, then I'll buy it to use with my GameStation Plus, or I'll buy it to use with anything that needs a trackball and spinner, because now I have an officially sanctioned MyArcade/Atari trackball and spinner that I can use with any emulation package. Hell, I could use that with my VCS, I could use it with my computer or my tablet or whatever. Now, I don't know if we have a chance in hell of any of these changes taking place between now and when the GameStation Plus releases. What I do know is even one or two of them were made, this would not only be a hit for average consumers, but also longtime hobbyists and enthusiasts like us. If they make even one or two of them, I think a lot more people would buy them. If they don't make any changes, it's still going to be popular with the average Joe who hasn't played Atari in a while. They see this on a shelf and they're like, wow, all this stuff for $100? Shut up, take my money. That's what's going to happen. Hey, I'm going to throw some links here and here of other coverage we have done and continuing coverage of these new titles from MyArcade. I certainly hope you found something to enjoy in this video though, and I will talk to you next time. Bye-bye.